Jackson, Mississippi. Los Angeles, California. We're teaching about something. Toronto, Canada. Berlin, Germany. We're teaching about something. Sydney, Australia. I think I said Berlin, Germany. We are teaching about something, aren't we? Jehovah's Witnesses around the world have been teaching about the coming of the last days for many, many years. And we should be concerned about the survival of those last days, should we not? Imagine yourself. Most of us go to the doctor on a regular basis, 6 months, years. At this appointment, the doctor told you, at his results, that you were going to have to undergo major surgery. I mean serious surgery. And at that point in time, you're asking questions. He's giving you answers. He's giving you instructions on what you should do. What is done here? What are we talking about? We're talking about concern. Concern brings forth action, doesn't it? Again, we must be concerned about the last day. We got 3 major points that we're going to talk about today. 1, are these really the last days? 2, is there proof that these are the last days? And for you and I, what is needed for our survival of these last days? Now, Jesus foretold the end of the Jewish system of things. Jesus warned his disciples what would occur in Jerusalem, Jewish system of things. This is brought out in Matthew, our first scripture that we're going to read today. That's going to give us some insight on the prophecies that Jesus told his disciples during that time. Now, this was the last time Jesus was actually leaving Jerusalem's temple. And this is how it goes. Starting in verse 1 of chapter 24. It says, now as Jesus was departing from the temple, his disciples approached to say to him, show to him the buildings of the temple. In response, he said to them, do you not see all these things? Truly I say to you, by no means will a stone be left here upon a stone, and not be thrown down. While he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples approached him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your presence and the conclusion of the system of things? In answer, Jesus said to them, look out that nobody misleads you, for many will come on the basis of my name, saying that I am the Christ, and will mislead many. You are going to hear of wars and reports of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for these things must take place. But the end is not yet. It says, for nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be food shortages and earthquakes in one place after another. Now, let's go to verse 1, where Jesus was telling them, gave them the first warning of when that destruction would be. He told his disciples, not a stone upon a stone will be unturned. Now, when we hear of something like that, Jesus was letting them know at that point that destruction was coming to Jerusalem. Now, when we hear about that, we kind of imagine a demolition ball, a wrecking ball, when like downtown when it's tearing a building down. When that building is completely torn down, it's unrecognizable, isn't it? Jesus went on to say, in verse 3, his disciples asked him, out of concern, when will these things be, Lord? And Jesus went on to tell them certain things to look for. Wars, food shortages, kingdoms warring against kingdoms. And notice what he said. He said, all these things must happen, but do not be alarmed, because these things must happen. But he also said at the end, they were the beginning of pains of distress. The beginning of pains of distress. What are pains of distress? Well, we know. We kind of put it in line with a woman that's carrying a child. She go through it 9 months, hopefully without any complication. But the pains of distress is once that 9 months has been followed through, then the pains come. The water break, the contractions start, and this pain escalates. It's not ever mild, but it starts to escalate from bad to worse. And when it comes to that deliverance of that child, that's considered what we're talking about, the tribulation of pain of distress. The child is there, that's a good thing, but pain of distress signify things that are really bad. The tribulation is about to end. Well, let's move forward here. Some 28 years had passed, and the Christians in Jerusalem were still awaiting the end. The Roman Empire was wrecked, just as Jesus said, from wars, earthquakes, famines, and pestilence. Judah is a hot place of civil ethnic strife. Yet, within its safe walls of Jerusalem, relative peace prevailed there. People were eating, drinking, marrying children, just as they always have done. The temple, with its immense walls and things of that nature, seemed to be a place of safety. Now, don't forget, people were still going on about their everyday life. And about 61 CE, the Christian congregation got a letter from the Apostle Paul. He commends them on their urgency, friends. But he had concerns about their endurance. See? And then some were spiritually weak. And some was falling short of their Christian maturity. Now, history shows, based on the prophecy that Jesus was telling us, history confirmed that Jesus' prophecy had a fulfillment in the first century. Luke chapter 21, verse 20 and 22, Jesus told his disciples, whenever they saw Jerusalem surrounded by encamped armies, they should flee. Well, in 66 CE, that's what happened. The Roman general, Cestius Gallus, excuse me, he brought his army to the Roman army to the walls of Jerusalem. That gave Jesus told them that was the time for them to flee Jerusalem. That gave them time to flee. 4 years later, see, some stayed and some left. 4 years later, 70 CE, the Romans returned. Many Jews died because that brought forth the final destruction of Jerusalem. Yes, it did. Discerning ones who had a sense of urgency, they left. But how did others respond? Well, let's read Luke chapter 19, verse 43 and 44. That's Luke chapter 19. And 44. And it says, because the days will come upon you when your enemies will build around you a fortification of appointed states, and will encircle you and besiege you from every side. They will dash you and your children within you to the ground, and they will not leave a stone upon a stone in you, because you did not discern the day of your being inspected. They did not discern the day of their being inspected. It's like Paul said in his letter. They did not have a sense of urgency. What's the lesson for us, friend? We cannot get complacent and comfortable with the system that we're living in today. We want to get the sense of what we're hearing at our Christian meeting, so we can stay attentive of what's going on around us all the time. This is for our survival. Now we have prophecies about the conclusion of this system thing that applies to us today. History proves that Matthew chapter 24 had an initial fulfillment from 33 CE to 70 CE. Jesus' prophecy has seen a greater global fulfillment since the establishment of God's kingdom in 1914. In 1914, Revelation chapter 6 points forward to the crowning of Jesus Christ being crowned during a time of war, food shortages, and plagues on the earth. Do we have proof of this? Well, let's look at some statistics here. The outbreak of the First World War in 1914 still stems to mark the end of the era and begins the new. Although the catastrophic death toll of World War I cannot precisely be determined, one encyclopedia estimates that the military deaths alone was 1,500,000. That's just in World War I. World War II was far more greater. It had figures varying of some 35 million to 65 million soldiers and civilians killed. Between the end of the Second World War and 2010, there were 246 armed conflicts in over 151 locations in the world. Matthew 24:7 talks about food shortage. It says famine caused more than 70 million deaths in the 20th century and continues global today. So these statistics, friends, support that Jesus' prophecy had a greater fulfillment, does it not? This prophecy was written a quarter of a century after the Jewish system thing. Agreement between Matthew 24 and Revelation 6 proves that Matthew 24 would also have a future fulfillment. Both in Bible and history show that the fulfillment of Matthew 24 is occurring now. So what should we do? Are we keeping close eye on things that's going around in the world today? Do we see and give us sense? Do this give us a sense of urgency and concern? Now is the time to take action if we are to survive these last days. Further proof we're living in the last days is brought out in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. Let's consider that scripture. Most of us may be familiar with it. It's 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. And it says, but know this, that in the last days, critical times hard to deal with will be here. Critical times hard to deal with. How do we view critical times hard to deal with? Well, let's look at our news that we see. We get off work, turn the news on. What do we see? School shootings, police killing our children in the street, whether it's justifiable or not justifiable. These are critical times hard to deal with. I remember the time when we were little kids, and we could take money from our mother, and she'd say, go to the store, give me a loaf of bread. Now we'd go to the store, corner store, and come back. The only concern she had was, where's my change? You know what I'm talking about? But the severity of it now is my child coming home? Where's my child? You've seen it on television. These parents are hurt. They're hurt. Very bad. This brings us to the attitudes. The attitudes of the world today. That's why it's critical time, hard to deal with. Let's read verse 2 through 5 and see why these things are going on. Why are we doing it? Do people really want to do this? Or do they have a driving spirit to make them do this? Let's start at verse 2 here. It says, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, haughty, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, disthankful, unthankful, disloyal, having no natural affection, not open to any agreement, slanderous, without self-control, fierce, without love of goodness, betrayers, headstrong, puffed up with pride, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God, having appearance of godly devotion. Well, godliness, but proving false to his power. And from these turn away. You see, there's a lot of attitudes there. A lot of attitudes. But let's examine a few that was brought out in the scripture. Disloyal. How can one be disloyal? It's just what it says. Jehovah talks about loyalty throughout the Bible. We have to be loyal to one another. In the world today, you go on your jobs, is backbiting going on. Is backbiting going on in our Christian congregation? Better not be. But what are we talking about today? Better not be. Lovers of pleasure. Going back to the world again. Sexual preferences. We know homosexualism is something detestable to God. We love the people, but we don't love that, right? But it's still something that we do not adhere to, homosexuality. No natural affection. This is serious throughout the whole world, the entire world. No natural affection. You know, normally when people turn on the television and see the mother has thrown her baby in a dumpster, put them in a microwave, oven. It's not normal, friend. Killing the children because they don't have to deal with the pressures of the world. You can get through that. But let's don't leave the males out of this. They have a responsibility too. So you have males that have families. And wives, and what they'll do, pressures will get too hard for them. They'll leave their families and their children. They'll abandon them. Leave the mother to fend for herself. That's having no natural affection. Here Paul was not talking about the last days of the Jewish system thing. Again, this applies now. Action is required if we are to survive the last days, friends. It is essential, absolutely essential, that we show our godly conduct and devotion, that we realize that we're living in the last days of Satan's world. Let's read 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 11 and 8 part of verse 12. And it says, since all these things are to be dissolved in this way, consider what sort of people you ought to be, in holy acts of conduct and deeds, of godly devotion, as you await and keep close in mind the presence of the day of Jehovah. This is the time we should persevere in prayer. Engaging in our ministry is a must. Not letting Satan's world or our fleshly tendencies diminish our zeal. Despite ridicule, and it's going to come. It's definitely going to come. Because the message that we got now is going to change. It's going to change to a message that we are really going to be convicting people that they won't survive these last days. Yeah. They're not going to like that. Association and entertainment is something that we need to keep a close watch on. Do not be over-occupied with the daily cares of life. You got to go to work. You got to pay your bill. You got to have entertainment for your friends and family. You got to enjoy life. But not one time did I say anything spiritual in that, did I? Keep a balanced view, friend. Stay balanced in your spirituality. 2 Peter chapter 2, let's be our last scripture. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 14. It says, therefore, beloved one, since you are awaiting these things, do your utmost to be found finally by him spotless and unblemished and in peace. How can we be found spotless and unblemished and in peace when Jehovah comes? Well, I can show you better with this glass of water here. Okay? Now, we've been talking about what we need to do to survive, but we got a formula here. Each and every one of you here today, I want you to use this formula, because I am. Okay? The first thing we need, the foremost thing, is prayer to Jehovah. Okay? Look at that glass shake. Who's going to pray then? Okay. Now, we need association, do we not? Why do we need association? Some of us, all the pretty smiles I'm looking at out there, they really look nice. But some of us are going through things. Yes, we need to know our brothers and sisters. They won't tell us. We need to know them. And you who are going through things, don't isolate yourself. Stay around your brothers and sisters so they can comfort you. So association. They just going to pray as you. See? Halfway full. Now we need service. Remember we said to Jehovah when we dedicated ourselves, we would serve him. And to serve him was to love our neighbors and to go out into the ministry and save lives. So let's put some service. We're almost there, friend. Service. Put it down. One more ingredient we need. Study. Study will help us and go through all these other things that we just put in. And why do we need to study? We need to study and then meditate on what we study. Because when we meditate on what we study, it becomes ours in our heart. Does it not? Yeah. And when we meditate, what does it do? We get this sense of what Jehovah's trying to tell us. It's not that hard to understand. See, once we get the sense of it, we have it. So, friends, in conclusion, now is the time to take action and remain steadfast so that you and I can be a survivor of the last day.
Brother Johnson, in behalf of everybody here today, we really thank you for helping.